Hey guys, what's going on? Memes here. So, are we going to war? This seems to be a question that a lot of folks have been asking themselves as World War III and Bishop Ferdinand have been trending upon Twitter. As we know, that bishop was the one that was assassinated shortly before the outbreak of World War I. So you can see how folks are making a meta comparison. So essentially what ended up happening? What ended up happening is there were protests outside a United States embassy. United States territory was violated. President Trump issued a number of paratroopers to descend and take it back. And apparently, in an act to prevent future attacks upon U.S. personnel as well as their interests, President Trump ordered a military strike. A Reaper drone fired 2 missiles, which ended up taking out the convoy that General Soleimani, an Iranian general, was in. He now is confirmed deceased, and the world is in an uproar right now. You have folks praising on the U.S. side, saying that, well, he has led to the countless deaths of many individuals, including Americans. You have those over in Iran saying this is an extreme escalation and just a response will be coming at some point. And I just go back to pain begets pain. Hatred breeds hatred. Violence spawns violence. Yeah, I don't care if it's corny or whatnot, but this seems to be the same thing. What are we arguing over? We're arguing over a lot of things, but when did it start? Do we remember? Who cast the first stone? I don't know, but let's take a look and see what's going on the internet. So as we can see here, Iran vows forceful revenge after U.S. kills generals. So let's pop over to the Times here. So as we can see, the killing of General Qassim Suleimani, what we know since the U.S. airstrike. Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Al-Khamenei promised retaliation. The U.S. moved to send more troops to the Middle East, and a deluge of threats on social media. Alright, so let's see what's going on. President Trump said Friday afternoon that an airstrike that killed Major General Qassim Suleimani, the powerful Iranian commander, was ordered to stop a war and prevent attacks on Americans. The argument here is the general had a number of connections to a number of militant groups across the Mideast and had been actively working, coordinating for such activities as fighting against a number of Daesh organizations as well as United States personnel. So it was viewed as a threat to the United States of America. As we can see, President Trump said that Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him, he said. Speaking to reporters from his resort in West Palm Beach, Florida, we took action last night to stop a war. We did not take an action to start a war. Those over in Iran, many of them are disagreeing there. There were a large number of folks that gathered outside the general's home over there in Iran, mourning his death. And all I know is if we're in a world where we can watch footage, and depending on what we typically believe in or whom we like, if we can't even agree upon that, this is a military action. All right. Mr. Trump said he wasn't seeking regime change, that in particular, but here's the thing. He ended up killing a general from Iran. Iran has been escalating things for a while in the Straits of Hormuz. We had those explosions on those ships there. More recently, whether they were mines, whether they were drones, no matter what happened, it's been a continual escalating conflict. I mean, this seems kind of familiar. I don't know. I saw somebody tweet a picture, looked like the front of a paper from back in '98, where after President Clinton had been impeached, he had then ordered the launching of a number of Tomahawk missiles at Iraq. I remember that. That's the thing. It's just, we seem to be going through these same cycles. Is it because, well, we're not doing enough, as some say? Do we need to just go full Machiavellian and try to do that? I mean, I would prefer to have peace, but I did also read that so I can understand that. But then at the same time, if you're a person over there and you're like, why are all these like U.S. personnel with all these different weapon systems. What are they doing over here? Like this is our country. I personally think blowback is a thing. I mean, this just does seem to perpetuate itself here. And then I hear the response is extermination. I'm like, that we should try to avoid genocide. That's me. But let's continue on. Let's see what actually happened. And we can see there we have the escalation. More troops, about 4,000 have been activated from Fort Bragg. Okay, Iran's response here. So Iran's UN ambassador calls Soleimani's killing an act of war. Iran's United Nations ambassador, Majid Ravanchi, called, apologies sir if I mispronounced your name, called the killing of Major General Qassim Suleimani an act of war, and vowed it would be met with revenge, a harsh revenge. Last night they started a military war by assassinating, by an act of terror, one of our top generals, Mr. Ravanchi said during an appearance Friday on CNN. We cannot just remain silent. We have to act, and we will act. Asked if Iran would act militarily, Mr. Ravanchi said that that's for the future to witness. And then basically there was mass backlash from a number of pro-Iranian social media accounts, unleashing a deluge of threats from across Twitter, Instagram, pictures of President Trump with his head off. They said it was a rate of 3,000 tweets every 45 minutes, according to the New York Times data there. Now, Iran actually has engaged in different acts, being able to prove into wipe data from different companies and organizations. They're by far not the most major player within the cyber warfare realm, but over the past 10 years, according to this, they've improved dramatically. As you can see, another airstrike hit an Iran-backed convoy there. They did not believe there were any senior leaders there. There was no comment there. And Iran is promising, as it said before, a forceful revenge upon the general's killing there. His death is a considerable blow to Tehran, and Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had called for retaliation and for 3 days of national mourning. His departure to God does not end his path or his mission, but a forceful revenge awaits the criminals who have his blood and the blood of other martyrs last night on their hands, the supreme leader said in his statement. Iran's security body also pledged to avenge General Soleimani's killing in the right place and time, saying it reached a decision on how to do so. So apparently that is very ominous. All I know is a lot of folks, they'll poke fun at Miss Rachel Maddow's coverage about what happens if someone were to attack the grid or something. I mean, we've seen smaller scale things, and all I know is the more and more connected we get, that is a possibility. I remember going around getting my first iPhone, saying, "Oh, scanning for Wi-Fi. Oh, look at all these open gateways here. Oh, huh." And all I know is from security is, no matter how fancy a lock you get, there's always going to be a key. So, I mean, this is a drastic escalation. I've heard folks saying that, "Oh, well, maybe we are already at war." Well, apparently on paper we are actually still in several wars. This is something that folks seem to forget. I would prefer to kind of move past this, but how we do so at this point, I mean, it almost seems like you're asking for an act of God, just because I don't know. I think we can do better, but we have to believe we can do better. I just think folks are just settled in, well, this is what happens, this will happen, I'll be able to keep this power, and then we just continue throughout this cycle. But let's just wrap up. I just want to get, okay, we have President Trump's tweet over here. General Qassim Suleimani has killed or badly wounded thousands of Americans over an extended period of time and was plotting to kill many more, but got caught. He was directly and indirectly responsible for the death of millions of people, including the recent large numbers of protesters killed in Iran itself. While Iran will never be able to properly admit it, Soleimani was both hated and feared within the country. They are not nearly as saddened as the leaders will let the outside world believe. He should have been taken out many years ago. Alright, that is President Trump's statement on that via Twitter. He was the General Soleimani was the head of the powerful Quds forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in the arch of nearly every significant operation by Iranian intelligence and military forces over the past 2 decades. Folks are responding to this differently. Let's just get into the picture here. As we can see, Baghdad International Airport, and Soleimani was struck in a vehicle by 2 missiles as his convoy was exiting the airport. As we can see there. Alright, it's carried out by a Reaper drone. Alright, Americans have been asked to evacuate from Iraq. As you know, oil prices have gone up as well. I believe the Dow Jones opened down 1%. ExxonMobil and I believe other petroleum primarily producing firms were up about 1%. Secretary Pompeo here, he sent out a tweet stating that Iraqis are dancing in the street for freedom. Thankfully, General Soleimani is no more. Get this going, eh? So, according to a lot of folks were not a big fan of him. Other folks were. Let me just stop that. All right. And yeah, I just want to get into the rest of the response from across the world. Towards the end here. Yep. Okay. And this is Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif called the strike an act of international terrorism. The U.S.'s act of international terrorism targeting an assassination of General Soleimani, the most effective force fighting Daesh, ISIS, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, et al., is extremely dangerous and a foolish escalation. The U.S. bears responsibility for all consequences of its rogue adventurism. There's also a question of Iraqi sovereignty as well, because I remember seeing Chuck Schumer earlier saying that General Soleimani was not a nice dude, but the sheer fact that the president did not even consult with the Gang of 8, it is concerning. But at the same time, I hear that and I'm like, Senator Schumer, aren't you trying to remove the president of the United States as well? So I mean, then that goes into internal U.S. domestic policy and politics as well. I don't know, the world seems very messy. I'd like to think we could leverage technology to try to figure this out. I think we need more folks actively speaking up so our leaders realize that maybe certain level of pragmatism would assist. But as far as the rest of the world leaders, go back down over here. All right. So you have folks arguing over the use of drones as well. This is going back, and again, we have precedent set by the previous Obama and Bush administrations. So this is actually, which was your name? Excuse me, Federica Mogherini. Apologies, ma'am. The European High Representative for Foreign and Security Policy said on Twitter that General's killing was an extremely dangerous escalation. And in the Middle East, and she hopes that all those that still believe in wisdom and rationality will prevail, and that some of the diplomatic achievements of the past will be preserved, and that major-scale confrontation can be avoided. In France, the country's junior minister of European Affairs, Amélie de Montchalin, said that she would soon consult with countries in the region. We have woken up to a more dangerous world, Ms. de Montchalin told French radio, calling for stability and de-escalation. As well as you have Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu praising Trump for the strikes. He said before boarding the plane, Mr. Netanyahu praised Trump for acting swiftly, forcibly, and decisively. General Soleimani, a longtime adversary of Israel, was credited with overseeing many attacks against Israel and Jewish targets, and he was linked with an attack on the Israeli embassy in Argentina in the 1990s. More recently, he was behind military actions from Syria across Israel's northern frontier. So basically, we have folks within Congress that are divided about this issue. Folks across the world are divided. I mean, this does play into a lot of the sheer fact that President Trump, he is an agent of chaos. I mean, in my opinion there. It's just, I always thought even when he was running, it's a gambit. It could go really well. It could go really poorly. That's the thing. It is a risk. A lot of folks around the world, especially in positions of power, especially anybody that's involved in financial markets, realize they don't like risk. They want to know what's going on so you can continue, so you can modify things. Folks are going to be jockeying for position. We're going to see what happens. I mean, just a straight-up conflict between the United States of America and Iran. I mean, we do have by far the most powerful military in the world. What's going to happen? Are we going to see mass plotting of more attacks? Was this the right move? Will this actually lead to a better situation within the Middle East? I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens. I just like to see us all, as corny as it is, be able to all just get along. And maybe if we don't all need to like each other or love each other, but we could have tolerance. I think that'd be a good start. So, hey guys, thank you everybody for watching, and peace out everybody.